Welcome to Hearts and Stripes, your one-stop shop for all things military marriage. I hope our discussions and interviews equip you with the tools to start or grow a beautiful marriage as we address the benefits and challenges of milmarriage. I believe life's most precious moments are worth celebrating, so I'll help you design your marriage blueprint in alignment with your core values. Thank you for joining us, and remember to rate, subscribe, and review. Let's do this. Hello, and welcome to Hearts and Stripes podcast. I am your host, Bree Carroll, and I am excited to be back for season 5. Listen, this season is the roller coaster season. We're talking about the highs and lows in military marriage, and I'm really excited to talk to our special guest today, a MMD Ambassador who works alongside us to really spread the mission for Military Marriage Day. And that is none other than Sara Roberts. I am going to share a little bit about her background. She is actually an Air Force Reserve spouse for almost 10 years. She works alongside serving her husband's squadron through 4 deployments. She has 2 wonderful kids. And listen, they're ages 6 and 2. I love that. They're right around the age of my kids. So I know that there's a party going on at her house as well. She served as a wing key spouse mentor, a reserve spouse mentor with MSAN, and on her son's Cub Scouts. She is a leader. That's amazing. Sara, we're so excited to chat with you a little bit, to share more about your milmarriage story and to hear about that reservist lifestyle. So thank you so much for being on Hearts and Stripes podcast.
Thank you for having me, and hi, everyone.
Yeah, so I'm excited to dive into this conversation. We're going to hear a little bit more about you and your family. So let's kick things off by you sharing your milmarriage story.
So my husband, Russell, and we have been together about 12 and a half years. March 30th will mark our 10th wedding anniversary. Yeah, it's a big milestone. We are a Air Force Reserve family. And so that looks a little bit different sometimes on things. He does serve, he's what's called an air reserve technician. So he does the same job as a civilian as he does on the military side. So we're very blessed to where he gets to do this as a government employee all the time. So we're kind of different from reserve family, I think, because Air Force is our life. It's everything that we know, and everything revolves around it. He is a aircraft mechanic on the A-10. So we're stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base. Being a reserve family, we actually have never had to move, but he has deployed 5 times. In his 16 years, all 5 of those to Afghanistan, 4 of those while we've been married. Well, not while we've been married, while we've been together. The first one was shortly after we had started dating. Mm-hmm. When I met him, his squadron was already slated for the following year to go for about 3 months, if not longer. So it was kind of a different beginning to a military lifestyle and relationship, because I feel like most of the spouses I've talked to, they had no idea what was coming at them, or what to expect really when they did get married. Either they dated in high school and then joined out of high school, and it was a roller coaster for both of them, and they both got to experience that, or they dated but there was never a deployment or anything. And then after marriage, there were deployments and, longer TDYs and kids. And so I was very blessed. Most people think I'm kind of crazy when I say that, to go through a deployment as a girlfriend. But it really let me see what I was signing on for, and what life was probably going to be like.
Yeah.
So
No, I love that. I love
yes.
that different perspective on it, because we have a lot more who aren't spouses yet, right?
Yep.
And they are dating. Like people are dating a lot longer before they
Yeah.
commit, take the leap into military marriage. And I think that is awesome that you can share that that was a blessing for you to
Yeah.
kind of get some perspective.
Yeah. It was very nice. It was hard, of course, like any other deployment. It was a little bit more lonely and a little bit more frustrating, I feel like, because this was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So at that time, they weren't quite as open with taking care of significant others that were not married.
Yes. Yes.
Um, they've, you know, Air Force has really come a long ways in that aspect,
Mhm.
of actually reaching out and making sure that all significant others are taken care of. Um, but at that point, it was not that.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, but it was a good learning opportunity. And he actually he came home in April, mid-April, and he proposed on my birthday in June.
Oh, how
Um,
nice.
yeah. Well, the funny thing is, he said that they had alarms go off in the middle of the night, so they had to
Mhm.
hit the ground. And when he hit the ground, he said, I knew I wanted to marry you because my first thought was, I wonder if Sarah's okay and what she is doing. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm halfway around the world. I'm in no danger whatsoever.
yeah.
And that was his first thought.
Oh, yay. I love that. I love that. And thank you for sharing that
Of
story. We
course.
always love a good love story, right? On Hearts and Stripes. So thank you for sharing that.
Of
And I think
course.
that's awesome that you guys had that type of beginning where you did get that sneak peek into military life, and then he proposes on your birthday, and then you guys are off to the races into Air Force life, which is
Yes.
really unique that you mentioned that you guys have not PCS, which
Yep.
is great for the family unit in
Yep.
it of itself. And I love that because I have worked alongside members who do the same position on the reserve side that they
Yep.
do on the civilian side. I've seen several, had the opportunity to work alongside several members like that. And there's such a great benefit to that. The continuity is fantastic. You still have that camaraderie there. You can really build a community. So, and for you as a spouse, you get to be and I alluded to this when I read your bio and talked about it a little bit, but you get to be such an asset to the wing, right? You've
Yes.
seen things happen, come and go. You know the best places, the
Yep.
connections in the community. It really is helpful for those families who are maybe
Yes.
there 3 or so years and have to start over again and again. So a big shout out to all our reserve families out there who get to help us navigate from someone who has to pack up her house in June.
Oh
Thank
no.
you to all the reserve families out there who we can lean on and just say like, hey, you kind of been here, done that, show us the ropes of this community, share your insights. And I think that it's extremely valuable in this military life.
Yeah. It's very nice. I enjoy not having to move all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since my husband is from the local area, so it makes it nice for our kids.
Yeah.
But I do also enjoy being that, like you said, continuity. I've had several spouses, and several other key spouses,
Yeah.
approach me and be like, "Hey, you know, how have you seen how has the wing handled this? What are the good places to eat around here? How does this base handle X, Y, or Z?" Um, and so it's nice to be able to help everybody kind of figure
Yeah.
those things out.
I love that. And I think that talks to your heart to serve.
Yeah.
I'm really excited because we had an opportunity to nominate you for the Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse of the Year program as one of our amazing MMD ambassadors. So let me just say here, thank you for what you do for not just Military Marriage Day, but also those families in the local community. You have been at this thing for some time, and I hope that you just are enjoying getting loved on a little bit throughout this process.
I am. I really appreciate the nomination. It's it's wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling. I am very unused. I'm not used to having attention on me. I'm used to being the one taking care of everybody.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different for me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's nice. I'm enjoying it.
Awesome. Well, we're glad that you're enjoying it. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Out of your experience as an Air Force Reserve family, what is maybe one lesson learned that you've had throughout this 10, 12-year military life?
My biggest thing, that I'm always telling people, just ask questions.
Yeah.
Whether it's of your spouse, the first sergeants, their commanders, your key spouses,
Yeah.
whatever it may be, even just fellow spouses, ask the questions. If you don't understand something, just ask. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
I am one of the rare ones in my circle that understands all the acronyms
Yes.
because they get thrown at me and then I ask, what does that mean? Okay, I got
Hmm.
that. Or,
Yeah.
certain protocols or the way things are done, and even especially for resources.
Yes.
I find a lot of spouses and even members too, they're shy about asking about resources.
Yeah.
Okay, we have this issue. What do I do about this? Or,
Hmm.
I really could use some help with finding a counselor because of anxiety. Or we've had some marital issues, or we've had
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. There's so much out there for us. On the reserve side, it's a little bit different on what we can use,
Yeah.
but there's still so many resources out there that all of the people around you are so willing to help you with. And honestly, even most of us are just willing to be a listening ear for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want a solution. I just want you to listen to me so that I feel heard. And that goes a long way. Um, and also, don't get wrapped up in or don't find yourself saying, I'm just a spouse.
Yep.
Because, and I'm guilty of that. I have said, I'm just a spouse. I'm just a key spouse. I, d- but we are a valuable part of this military life. You know, we're what keeps the members going sometimes,
Yeah.
and if we weren't there to support them or encourage them, the mission might not get done or might not get done as well.
So
So
true.
don't ever let yourself get to that point where you don't see your value in what you are doing as military spouse. It's a very rough ride. And especially sometimes on the military or on the reserve side, we have our civilian, our lives. Um, but those support systems don't always understand the intricacies and the difficulties that go along with the military side of life.
Yes.
So it can be even more difficult. Um, so always just remembering that you do serve a very important part. You are valuable and that you're never alone.
Yeah.
There's always somebody who's a phone call away that is more than happy to help you and help you through whatever it is.
Yeah, Sarah, I love that so much because you bring up two really, really good points. One major lesson learned for all of us is to ask. And I
Yes.
think oftentimes we have this embarrassment or we don't want to look like we don't know, we don't want to
Yep.
come off a certain type of way, or we didn't want people to know that we have an issue. And really, we're not meant to do this military life alone.
Nope.
And all of these resources are available to us, but if they are underutilized, they will go away.
Yeah.
So our
Yes.
lack of knowledge, not wanting to ask, that's only a detriment to ourselves and to other people who may be in need of those resources, and we're not taking advantage of them. I also love that you talked about not saying, I'm just a spouse.
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely right. We can beat up ourselves a lot, or put ourselves in these little boxes and just say like, oh, well, I don't want to make a fuss, or I'm not the important one, or what have you. And I think there's one thing to talk about, like being humble, or, going through situations graciously and that type of thing, but not to diminish our value and not to diminish our worth and our contribution to military life. I think that's such a good point, because you're absolutely right. I see that in military spouses throughout the branches. We can be really hard on ourselves. And
Yes.
I think giving ourselves a little measure of grace would be helpful in every season.
Oh, yes. Very much so.
I love how you talked about that rough ride. I'm going to just go ahead and throw my hands up, because that's like our season 5 symbol when we talk about this being the roller coaster season, those highs and those lows. And you're right. Everything is not always sunshine and rainbows. It's not always great. Can you share maybe a challenge that you've had to overcome throughout this military life, and give some perspective to someone else that may be going through it right now?
So my husband, like I said, he's deployed 5 times, 4 times in our relationship, 2 since we've had children. And he actually, the most recent deployment he went on, our daughter was 2 months old. So I had a 4-year-old and a 2-month-old, and I was doing it all on my own for the most part. Like my son would go to the grandparents on the weekend so I could get a little bit of rest, so I could sleep when the baby slept, and
Yeah.
but even with having all of that, I didn't ask for help. I didn't reach out and really ask for people to come and help me with the yard work or whatever it may be. I put way too much on myself. And I think a lot of us do that. A lot of us try to be super mom or super dad or superwoman, superman, whatever it may be, for your situation during those deployments. But it would have been much better for my sanity. It would have been less stress for my husband while he was deployed. If I would have just kind of reached out a little bit more. Kids have definitely been our where the trickiness comes in, because that following year, he was gone from February and through April. He was gone over 60 days on TDYs. So trying to balance out the daddy's home, the daddy's gone, daddy's home, daddy's gone.
That ever-changing schedule.
It's so hard. It's hard enough when you don't have children in the mix, trying to just remember that balance. But then when you have young kids who don't understand why dad's here and then dad's gone, that's been our biggest, one of our biggest hurdles, honestly. So finding ways that work for your kids to help fill that gap, to help them
really
miss mom or dad a little bit less. We've been lucky that most of the time when he goes someplace, he can still FaceTime us. So that's helpful. But we also had photo blankets made.
Oh, I love it.
That have a picture of them together. So my son has one, and then my daughter has one. And then we have daddy dolls, which are awesome. You send in a picture of whomever. It started off as for military families, but now you can have them made for anybody, even your dog.
I love it.
And so each of my kids have a daddy doll that when dad's gone, if they're missing them a little extra, we can pull it out and they can snuggle with daddy. And they still have that picture and they can hold him.
Yeah.
And we've also done those recordable books. My son absolutely loves them. Those are his favorite thing in the world. You know, when dad's gone and he's missing them at bedtime, he pulls out that book and, you know, it's like dad's home and reading to him just like he normally would. But trying to find those little things that work for your kids in those times, not just during deployments, but TDYs, or, you know, if you're on opposite schedules. My husband works night shifts. So my kids are in bed before he gets home. You know, my son doesn't see him during the week because of school and everything. So just finding those little, you know, pieces that kind of help make it easier for the kiddos and honestly for your sanity too.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
Those are some amazing resources that you shared. And for those who are listening, we're going to drop links in the show notes so that you can take advantage of all of these different things. But thank you for sharing that, because you're absolutely right. On this roller coaster of a ride, one of the lows and challenges is definitely separation and reintegration. And I think you bring up really good points of like finding different tools and tangibles to support not just ourselves through that, but also our littles, because you're right. They're the ones that I think are so like, they like routine. They like things to stay the same. And that is not the case in this military life. So helping them along the way, that's definitely something that is beneficial for them. Cause I know we can see that with our littles. We have 3 and they're 8, 6, and 4. And they're around that age where it's like, you know, oh no, daddy, don't go, you know, if he's going on another TDY or why are you going, like, what's going on? My schedule, like the schedules are changed. But I do want to also foot stomp another thing that you said. As we ride this roller coaster, one thing that I really hope, and I'm saying it for myself too, that flies off of us as we are getting whipped through the wind of this ride is all of those Superwoman capes. We've got to let those go. We have to let them go. And I love how you said that, like, thank you for your vulnerability. You didn't ask for as much help as you need. And I think oftentimes we put a measure on what enough help is. Because someone may listen and say, oh, well, you had grandparents nearby, so that was enough help. No, friends, listen, lean in for a second. Enough help, whatever you deem as enough help, means that the need is being met. So that may mean in one season that grandparents taking kids for the weekend might be enough. In another season, that may look like grandparents and a friend and a girls' night. And, you know, you speak to a clinician and you know, and you do something else, like it may mean a lot more. And that is okay. It really is okay, because I think we put ourselves in these positions where we are afraid to ask for help, but also we're not willing to be honest with ourselves when we need more help. Because the picture of a military spouse tends to be, oh, they can just muscle through and they can do, and it's like, no, guys, that's not the case. Can we do it? Sure. But at what cost?
Yeah. See, so we had attended a pre-deployment yellow ribbon event before the first time that he deployed. So we were dating. And one of the speakers, she said something, and I hold on to it a lot, but I've started kind of trying to get away from it too. It's a very good point. You know, each branch has a motto. So, you know, like most well known is Semper Fi for the Marines. Well, she said hers is Semper Gumby, always flexible. You know, I mean, most people don't know who Gumby is anymore, you know, but he was a very flexible like character.
Yes.
And I've always loved that, because you know, it reminds me, hey, you know, things are going to change. Got to try to just kind of roll with flow.
Yeah.
But I'm also starting to kind of try to just remind myself that it's okay not to always
be as flexible.
Course.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're right.
Yes. And I know that I personally, and I know a lot of us are probably the same, you know, I feel like I'm the one that's supposed to be helping you. You're not supposed to be helping me.
Oh, Sarah, you're talking about me right now. You're talking about me.
So that's where, that's another difficulty is for those of us who are the helpers. Hey, it's okay for others to help you sometimes.
Yes.
It's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world if somebody sees your vulnerability that you couldn't do 101 tasks at the same time and keep your children alive and fed and a little bit of sanity. Like, then it's okay. So
yeah, I completely agree. I feel like that is something that I've had to remind myself a lot in this season. When we PCS back to Barksdale, it wasn't like how the season prior to when we were at Barksdale. And I had to be okay with that. It was different, but I had to remind myself, like, Bree, don't overextend yourself to serve in all these capacities, because in this season, guess what, friend? You need to be served. Like, we have all these, events and military resources and things for the families. And it's like, you need give parents a break day. You need to be served in this capacity. Like, it is for you. I definitely, like you, have the heart to want to serve others and help those around me. But there's something to be said about knowing when it's time to accept the help for yourself.
Yes. That's a very important thing to learn. It's a hard thing to learn for some of us, but it's very important.
I love that. I love that so, so much. So it is my favorite part of every episode. And I get to ask you, since you were on the hot seat, I like to say, when it comes to telling us and determining what our heart track is going to be for this episode. So the heart track, simply a theme song. Maybe it's your wedding song, or it's just a song that aligns with kind of that lesson learned that you shared with us earlier. Sarah, let us know what our heart track is.
So I think, it's a very hard one, because I have a lot that I really love and that really just, they make me happy. But I think going with the military theme and just everything that we go through, I'm going to go with I Will Survive.
Look at that.
One, I think.
I love it.
There have definitely been some hard times where it's like, I don't know how we're going to make it through this. How are we going to make whatever work? But you know what? We always make it through. We always survive it.
Yeah. That is so true. And it's such a good track. So everybody, tune in and listen. If you need to play I Will Survive during one of those low moments on this roller coaster ride, Sarah has hooked you up with a theme song for that time frame. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your milmarriage story. Thank you for serving as an MMD ambassador. For everyone listening, show Sarah some love. We'll be connecting, and you'll see some of the highlights from this episode on Military Marriage Day on social media. That is because Hearts and Stripes is the official podcast of Military Marriage Day. So more to come. Sarah, thank you again. It is always a pleasure. And for everyone out there, strap into this crazy roller coaster ride and stay milmarriage strong. Bye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to rate, subscribe, and review. This is Hearts and Stripes. We are the few, the proud, that aim high and are forged by love. Always ready, always there. We are milmarriage strong.